Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. There was a lot. There was a lot that wound up happening in this episode, and I'm gonna do my best to sit there and try to cover as much as I can. But I know that I'm gonna leave some stuff out. I just do. My issue that I have right now with Curtis is that ultimately he is talking and getting advice. Ultimately, my issue with Curtis is that he is talking to everybody except for his wife. And yes, in the beginning I just sit there and say he did get advice from Hat Daddy. He did get some advice from Jordan. But ultimately, all this stuff, it almost seems like the stuff is not going to get resolved in his eyes until he takes care of Drew. Once he takes care of Drew, he can kind of figure out where things are going to go with his marriage. But in all reality, it's like it doesn't necessarily have to be, well, I got to do A before I do B, because you're still living with B. You're still living with Portia. You're still hiding this tension with your wife between Trina. And Marshall saw that today. Marshall was like, what's going on? And of course, Kurt's just like, it's the lie, right? It's the lie. He says that over and over again with Marshall. He says it again with um, Jordan. And, he refers back to this the second time. One of the things that Marshall said was, see, with Curtis, he felt that he gave up on his marriage too fast. Right? And a lot of the lies was work related. He felt like like I said, he gave up too soon. So Marshall was like, why don't you give Portia that second chance that you didn't give Jordan? I'm like, okay, listen, it's nice to sit there and have a talk to an outside person or whatever to kind of see things a little bit different, to give a different perspective, right? You're just talking around everybody else and you're not sitting there trying to at least attempt to make things better with your wife. I just, I look at this and I don't think it's just going to be a very fast thing. And I feel like if he waits too long to try to talk to his wife, he's not going to have a marriage left. Because at some point, Portia's going to get to her breaking point. Okay? Let's just be honest, Curtis. You are not that special. You really are not. And you may wind up sitting there damaging your relationship before kind of get things settled with Drew. Now, speaking of Drew, oh man, it's bad when you got Nina coming across as the voice of reason. I want to say that again. It's bad when you have Nina being the voice of reason. It's like, how did we get to this point? Oh, they want to sit there. It's like they really wanted to go out their way to make people really despise Drew. Oh my goodness. Because there's a point where, Nina's banging on the door and Drew finally answers. Drew's like, I'm going to tell Willow everything. And Nina's like, well, then I'm going to sit there and tell Willow everything. And we'll both wind up losing. So ultimately, he's like, I'm not going to probably wind up doing it. But, he's like, well, how could you sit there and do that to me? It was like, a lot of the bad decisions that she's been making, which, let's be honest, we're not just going to put this on Drew, but Drew didn't help the situation. And she's ultimately like, why don't you step back, let Michael and Willow figure this whole thing out, right? Because before the whole firebombing thing or whatever, yeah, Michael did sit there and say, he wanted sole custody as a scare tactic because This chick is not there crossing state lines, not even not there bothering to talk to him. And he said, he was like, listen, let's sit there and do joint custody. Let's do that. And, Sonny was not there talking to Michael today, and he's like, compromise. You know, I'm having a hard time understanding. See, Willow and Drew seem to think in their head, because Michael cheated first, that this is a slam dunk. Let's sit there and think about this for a hot minute. What is the definition of cheating? What is the definition of cheating? Because if you really think about it, Willow cheated first, not Michael. Okay? Willow cheated first, not Michael. I don't remember the timeline. I think the whole sleep. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the whole sleeping thing. From what I understand, Willow cheated first with the kiss, and then she just full blown withdrew, just nursery sex. Putting those two words together just turns my stomach. But and then Michael found out Sasha was having a bad day or a bad night, and then they wound up getting together. So if you really sit there and think about it, even with just a straight up knocking boots, Willow still cheated first. But what it really comes down to is the kiss. Because technically that's cheating. What it was in the eye of the law, the cheating is just only when you. Is that when that is? Because I don't understand how any of this is working. But the point is, at this point, Michael is not feeling exactly too confident. And Sonny's like, you might want to sit there and think about compromise. Now, one of the things I do want to sit there and talk about was that Sonny was apologetic about, Michael getting hurt and everything. And Michael seemed like he was taking this, him being hurt just because he was too close to Sonny for the second time, a little unrealistically well. He was like, well, I understand, and, you do your best to sit there and try to protect me, and I love you, and that's not going to change. And I guess he kind of looked at it from a father's point of view, like, he's always going to sit there and love his kids, he's always going to protect his kids, so he felt like, well, Sonny's going to do the same thing for me, so I get it. Why do we just, like, I don't know, I can't help but sit there and look at that situation and be like, I have been hurt more than once because I was standing too close to you. Maybe I should just kind of take a couple of steps back. I can love you from a distance, but I don't have to sit there and be, I just, yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to really sit there and get past that. Everyone comes to visit the baby. Jason is the godfather. Um, Carly comes to visit the baby. She's understanding about the whole lie. Nina actually confessed her sins because at this point she knew that Sasha was going to find out either way. But here's the thing, though. She was like, well, I did it. I had to sit there and look out for my daughter. And, Sasha was like, you can't really think that, Drew being in her life and having those kids with Drew is actually going to be beneficial. So, with that being said, like a lot of the decisions that she's made, bad decisions, Drew wasn't exactly helping those decisions. So her winning custody and everything like that, do you honestly think that's going to be the best for Willow? And Nina has that look on her face, and the look on her face is, yeah, you're right. On top of the fact that Drew literally sat there and said that once we win custody, I'm leaving all my haters in the past. We're going to DC. Just going. Not even sitting there bothering to ask Willow. Now, Willow does get thanked by Carly. I was like, listen, I don't give a shit if you're mad at her. You can stay mad at her, but you better thank her for stepping up and helping Sasha and your granddaughter out. You better sit there and thank her. I want to make sure that there's a certain tone, there's a volume. I want to hear it all low. I want to hear it. She says that, and of course, that was pretty much the end of the conversation. I think Willow tried to be like, so now that, you think we can. Nope. Nope. And she walked up. Sasha was like, you know what, listen, I'm happy, I'm tired. I'm not I'm not even gonna sit there and do the whole, you know now don't get me wrong, she ain't gonna be too thrilled about her with Nina, but I don't think it's gonna be the Cold War, like I can't believe you did this and you betrayed me and whatever. Um Now Jason came from a meeting with Anna, finished talking about the whole investigating Dalton on the low, and Turner walks over. Turner's like, hey, what you doing? I mean, we got the local mob enforcer, and we got the commissioner, the police commissioner, just kind of hanging out in the park that night, talking. And Jason leaves, and Turner's like, oh, this is a bad look, right? You know this is a bad look. You know that every time that you prosecuted Jason and Sonny, well, they never got convicted. And of course, Anna's like, well, that's on the DA. And it's like, yeah, but that also kind of falls in the police department too. So, she leaves. Anna tells Sonny, Turner's coming after you. I think Sonny already knows that. You didn't tell him anything though. You just kind of ran down the clock as far as the soap opera is concerned. Um, See, this is the reason why these videos turn out to be 20 goddamn minutes long. Also, Felicia's there too. Now going back to Willow and Michael. After Michael was with Sasha, runs across Willow and says that he's going to get the boys, the kids, to sit there and meet their new sister. And, offers Willow to sit there and come along with them. So they all go and they see the new baby, whatever, and the um, Nick, something in the queue, something with an N. But anyways, they're all there, and Michael and Willow are looking at each other, and they're smiling and everything like that. And Drew comes in, he sees it, and man, if insecurity had a face in a dictionary, it would sit there and definitely show that man because he was like, he looked worried. He looked worried, like he's not doing enough to sit there and drive a wedge between those two. And he literally starts to sit there and say he's going to make sure Willow knows that because Michael is a Corinthos, that he's going to be relentless as far as trying to get custody. There's going to be no compromise. He's not going to happen. And, like I said, it sucks, because even Nina and Sonny are like, you can just sit there and let cooler heads prevail, and let everyone just kind of, you know, let those two talk it out. Now, Natalia, drunk as hell, gets interviewed by Molly. And I don't even really understand why, because eventually Molly's like, I can't even sit there and prosecute you. And she's like, why? Because she's like, we don't know each other, whatever. And of course, Molly's like, yeah, but you knew my sister when you said a bunch of those homophobic comments. So you can understand why I have a conflict of interest. Now, Natalia, I'm going to be honest, is just acting like just insufferable, right? Just absolutely insufferable. She's like, I want my phone call. Da, 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 da. I really do feel like in some ways they're just mocking Haley P. I really feel like they are because she is just being all over the place. She calls Marco. Marco doesn't answer. Marco is talking to Jordan, and Jordan is like, so what's going on with Dalton? What's his research about? You want to sit there and kind of legitimize it, like make it public since he's doing so much other charity work. It's like, why not highlight that one? Anyway, Jordan leaves and talks to Curtis because Curtis is still not talking to his wife, but rather talk to everybody else about his wife, which is so out of pocket, especially to talk to his ex-wife about his current wife. Like, that's just that's just bad on itself. Um, but Turner takes an interest in Natalia, and Natalia's like, I don't have to sit there and talk to one of my lawyer and everything like that. And Turner was like, all right, that's fine. How about we sit there and talk about Sonny? Now, what does Natalia know about Sonny that's going to sit there and help her? You think they're going to sit there and try to get Natalia to wear a wire? That'd be interesting. Um, Now, Marco was sitting there talking. Well, one of the things that Marco was sitting there talking about before Jordan left was Measure C. Basically, sitting there saying, like, you're going to go against your own interests. See, Sitwell bought the peers overpriced. But if Measure C passes, he's worried that he's going to lose the peers. And Sitwell's like, listen, once Sonny is gone and he's driven from out of town, they're not going to care about the property. And I'll just swoop in and I'll take it. Now, they do blur the line between, like, his legit businesses and his, was it legal stuff or whatever. And, it doesn't really go anywhere. They're not, kind of at an impasse. He does sit there and mention Lucas and stuff. I wonder if Marco is going to sit there and try to use Lucas in some sort of way. Is Marco? Is Sitwell going to try to use Lucas in some sort of way since he has a relationship with Marco? I wouldn't put it past him. I really would not put it past him. Um, Cody and Molly hang out for a little bit. Nothing really comes from it. Well, one of the things that Cody did sit there and say to Sasha was that he's going to have to apologize to Jason. Kind of wondering, should he apologize to? Yep, no, Jason. Yeah, he definitely owes Jason an apology. Drew, I don't know. I did feel like his beef with Drew just seemed like it came out of nowhere. At least other people had legitimate issues with Drew that I can understand, but Cody, no. But Cody does talk to Molly, and after seeing Sasha, realizes that listen, he took it rough when he found out that he was cousins with Sasha and they were in a relationship. But seeing her happy was like, he can kind of finally put that to bed, right? Also, they talked about Britt. Um, they are still mentioning TJ. Jordan did sit there mention TJ working at the hospital. So I guess TJ is going to be like the new head of St. Clair. Drop a comment below if you know what I'm talking about, Heather Sinclair. I don't think I should have to sit there and say it for some people, but if you know, you know. Um, and then after that, the talk doesn't really go anywhere. Okay, yeah, 19 minutes, just like I predicted. 19 minutes, 3 goddamn pages. Yes, I pretty much wrote a book. Um, yeah, 3 goddamn pages. Let me see something. I was starting to think, I was like, did I miss anything? And I kind of did miss something, and this was a conversation with Jason and Carly. And Carly's sitting there asking Jason, like, how come Michael didn't tell me? How come you didn't tell me? Was you ever gonna sit there and tell me? And of course Jason sits there and lays out all the reasons why he couldn't sit there and tell Carly. And although she's not happy about it, she understands um why she couldn't sit there and say anything. But on the upside or the downside, depending on Sonny's view, Robert and Sonny are kind of family in a sense. Sasha and Robert and Michael and Sonny, Carly. Yep, just one big happy family. All right, I felt like that's pretty much about it. But I could have missed some stuff because it was a lot. Let's not always sit there and say that. Well, I don't know if it's always my funnest because it changes depending on the episode of each soap opera that I watch and review. But I will have to sit there and say that General Hospital will always be my most challenging review out of all of them. My easiest one, of course, is Bold and Beautiful. Without a doubt, it's always going to be Bold and Beautiful. Sometimes I feel like maybe the second most challenging one may be Beyond the Gates. Maybe Beyond the Gates. Y&R is kind of tied with that a little bit, I guess, in some respects. But sometimes it hasn't been lately. Also, I haven't actually done a review of Y&R, so I would sit there and say GH is definitely my hardest, and B&B is, well, the easiest one. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to go. I don't know if I'm actually going to do a live stream tonight. I'm kind of going back and forth about the whole thing. I mean, I guess I have some time to do it, but I do also have to wake up super early once again, just like yesterday. And I don't know. But ultimately, now I did sit there and say something about the future of the live streams, and yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep it the same. But I might take a break tonight, though. I might take a break tonight. I'm not too sure, but anyway, let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.